excited to have you here and get started with this. So, thank you. Man, I hope it's very
okay, very good. But we're also very excited to be with you folks. It's a little ramp up getting here. We're really excited to be engaged with you. You folks have history than we do with efforts to understand community needs and how you center or with community patterns for various functions that really enhance life in the community. Just introductions, because we didn't have that much on the paper here. So I'm Mark Lee, architect with Chairman and the CEO. So if there's a problem, I can't take it to my boss. So you can get me to deal with. But I love what I do. So, community with several community center projects and needs that I get to with you. I'm joined by an incredible group here. And Will.
Thank you. Will Gatchel, an associate in lead the municipal projects for Harriman, and we're excited to get successful. This is Tom district architect and design of Harriman, and part-time golf course
Yeah. Well, I hated situation. Great. We do have a sign sheet. Just as the present project get spelling of your name. That minutes. What we have put together and guide us through the process is an agenda just to get things started off here, just to establish kind of an understanding of our process and what we had proposed. Also understand from you folks what level of planning you've already done and what are some of the goals that you'd like to see when we all up this phase of the project. And I know we've got Roger, you're on the phone, correct? Or on the
Yes.
Very good. And if you can't hear us, let us know.
Well, the sound just got better. It was really broken up at the beginning. Thank you.
Okay, great. Certainly let us know. I know technology doesn't always work smoothly, but we'll speak up if we need to. So our agenda is, again, to run through kind of an overview of our process, and that's what that handout that Will distributed is. And from there, we'll have a series of questions, and we'll kind of set up the next steps, and look forward to meeting again with you folks. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Will.
Thank you. So, before we get into the agenda itself, do want to go around on the town's end and get introductions and learn about you as well. And then, as Mark said, we're going to review the our process, and we have an updated schedule, which is part of the contract that we just had signed. So thank you for that. And also, I wanted to just articulate quickly the project vision, talk about what you all are hoping to get out of this this process, and then talk pretty briefly about the analysis of the current facilities, looking at community needs, assessing the partnership opportunities. A lot of these are scope items in the assessment, the public outreach and community engagement piece, the final report and the final presentation. And then once we get through that, we want to kind of put it back on you to ask, how do you gauge success for this at the end of this phase? What would you consider a successful outcome? So while you thinking about that, well, we're droning on. You can think about your answer, and then getting kind of another, just an overview from your perspective, which ties into the vision as well. And then there's next steps and next meeting, and really next steps and next meeting is organizing tours of the other facilities around here, because that's our understanding of what that next step is. So we'd like some more clarity on what that looks like from your side. So any questions so far? So Pam, would you like to start kind of going around? the
Not a
intro?
problem. Pam Leduc, I'm the Parks and Recreation Director. I started here in 1987, part-time. It's a summer position. And we've grown the department from there. We have developed facilities throughout a few years, and just look forward to working with you, because there is some type of a need for more programming, and having a justification for that and a facility would be really wonderful to have in our hands.
Great, thanks.
I'm Steve Kessler. I've lived in Topsham for 13 years, Brunswick for 5 years before that. I have 2 children going through the high school system currently, one in 8th grade, the other one is a sophomore. I also have in-laws that live in Topsham as well, over the age of 70, as well as, well, they're deceased now, but grandparent in-laws that lived in Brunswick in this area for 20-something years. So definitely have a really big tie to this area, for sure.
Great, thanks, Steve.
I'm Erica McKenney. I've lived in Topsham for 15 years. I have 4 kids, but 3 of them are in Topsham schools right now. One soon to be in Topsham school. For me, like coming into this committee, I found myself with my kiddos often having to drive to other towns to use facilities in other towns. And I'm thinking it'd be nice if they existed in the town which I live in. So that's what brought me here. Parks and Rec does a great job with the sports programming. We still travel a lot.
Great.
Do you want this for people's the details of people's names as you're
Sure.
writing names? It might be
Okay.
helpful to have that.
Thank you.
I'm Leslie Byrne, and I'm going to be one of your primary contacts. Steve and I share the co-chair position. And I've been a part of the committee since it began, and it's been a few years before COVID. So really happy to get this to this step. It's really exciting. Yes, I wanted to be a part of it for similar reasons. I've been in the area for 18 years and just really see the world through community and how things tie together, and both the local politics and school board and this. So those are areas that I'm involved in. So yeah, it's really exciting to be part of this.
Thanks.
My name is Lynn Soroy. I think I'm the only one who grew up in Topsham. And is still here in Topsham. I have 2 grandchildren. My daughter's graduating from Endicott College in a couple months, and my son's getting married a week later from her graduation. So May's gonna be very busy.
Yeah.
So both my kids went through the school system. Both my children did very many of the Parks and Recs program from, 5 years on, 5 years old and up. So this is kind of something that's very near and dear to my heart, and anything that we can do to enrich our community, not just for our kids, but whatever this may come out of this, whether it's a general use type of thing or whatnot, will just add so much value to the town. So I'm excited.
Great, thanks.
Hi, I'm Ann Callahan. I am a resident of Topsham. I am a retired foreign trade zone administrator for Merck and also a retired pastor. I work part-time as a life coach, and I serve on this committee and also serve on the National Coaching Coalition Committee as well. And I'm married, and my son also is a resident of Topsham, and Canada is 800 feet away from his house.
And I have a son graduating this year and one who's already graduated.
Congratulations.
And we're all neighbors.
Yeah.
Steve and Leslie.
It causes a little pressure for the non-neighbors.
Insiders and the outsiders, right?
Luckily, this phase, we're not selecting a location.
Right.
We might be influenced by convenience.
So we're here.
Mark, first, yeah.
My name is Mark Waltz, Assistant Town Manager, and I did not grow up in Topsham. Went to Bowdoin in the eighties, and then in the nineties, I met one of Lynn's classmates who grew up in Topsham. I managed to get her a mile through the woods. So my wife's been in Topsham all the time, but I haven't. And worked for the town for about 3 years, and been staffing this committee since about the time I started with the town. And I guess one thing maybe to put out there is that unlike some other towns, Topsham seems to, at least the current makeup of the leadership of the town, puts a lot of emphasis on frugality. So I think some of the select board has been questioned how far they wanted to go with this. But all of them are willing to give it a shot. They put a lot of emphasis on the partnership part. So I think it will be important as you investigate partnerships to try to think of ways that we can do this cost effectively. They don't envision a $20 million building or something. But they do want a place where the community can get together and, do events, and what exactly that looks like would be based on your input and stuff. But I think we owe less than $1 million right now in total bond for the town debt. So I guess just to show the emphasis of the Topsham is trying to do things as smoothly as possible.
And indeed.
And if I could add one thing to that, the other sense that I get is that the select board wants to do what the town wants. So it's always been, let's find out what does the town want. And so when we did our survey, it was trying to determine what people would pay for it, and those kind of details were important. So.
Don't forget Roger.
Oh, yes, Roger.
Oh, not to be forgotten. Roger?
Yeah, hi, thanks. I'm Roger Nuddo. I'm a chiropractor in Brunswick. I live in Topsham. My wife and I have lived here for about 4 years. We moved here from Yarmouth. And before that, I was raised in Fort Kent from a little town that could. And having been involved in the Chamber of Commerce up there while I was, I had a full-time office there. I really think it's important to be involved with community in this, but this is my first involvement in Topsham. I have an older son and 3 grandchildren. He lives up there with his wife and family in Madawaska. And our youngest son is graduating from Purdue in May.
Excellent.
Great. Excited to hear what you folks have to say.
Super. Well, Tom's actively working on we're working on a project in Madawaska, right?
Yeah.
Health center. A new health center. Yeah. And I married a Daigle from Fort Kent. So.
Well, I just have to say, my husband's from Van Buren.
There you go.
People,
Exactly.
My in-laws were from Mars Hill, so
Oh, yeah.
they weren't involved with the bank robbery up there.
No.
But they probably know who knows.
Biggest bank robbery in the history of the state.
Yeah.
I don't have roots in the county. But everyone I meet who has the last name Gatchel, we can trace our ancestry to a cemetery in Brunswick. So there's yeah, my family's from Hartswell, and I've met some New Hampshire Gatchels, and we can all connect back to Brunswick. It's very interesting. So just wanted to start going through this little packet. Roger, we went analog, so sorry, we don't have
We have the ability to email it to me and I can forward it to Roger.
yeah, you can absolutely. Are you on here?
Okay, never mind. Don't worry about it.
Sure.
It's fine.
All right. We'll follow up, make sure that everyone send it electronically.
Okay, thank you.
And this is really kind of a high level overview. So the schedule, having us start here at the end of March. So the first, we don't have this kickoff meeting in the schedule, but really thinking about the first steps of the project, which is the analysis of current facilities, and that falls under the first scope area research and market analysis. And so we have a couple weeks for that. We weren't sure the level or number of facilities that you really wanted to get into. So we provided some, a few weeks of time to be able to get to get to those facilities and allow committee members to schedule. I don't know how, if you're wanting to tour facilities with us or what that looks like, and we can talk about that under the next steps. And then the next one, once we've toured all those, evaluating the community needs, so really reaching out with surveys and following up on the documents that you've already created and the work you've already done to dial in and see what that looks like in 2023 and what the current needs are. And then once we have an understanding of what's out there and what Topsham really wants, we can start talking about partnership opportunities and looking for some synergies between other groups, maybe some public-private partnerships, whatever that might look like. We'll just have an open discussion about how that might influence the generation of a new community center. And then we have the second scope item, which is the public outreach and community engagement, and that's going to start. It basically runs the whole length of this process, and we'll have some little blocks of time which we will hit toward the end of April, in mid-May, and then really those will be sending out surveys, connecting with people, getting initial feedback. And then in June, we'll really have like a workshop to talk and understand, what the community is interested in and what really is going to be a supported scope of work and program. And then we'll package it all up with a final report. And then we have in the schedule sometime in July, a final presentation, and that's sitting there as a block by itself because that will just need to be scheduled and fit into whatever the best timeline for you. So that's really what we're looking at schedule wise. And if we have success on this and it's embraced, we're hoping that then the next phase can be initiated and we can move this forward with some scenario development.
Are there any considerations in terms of the schedule and information that you folks would like to have in any sort of timing as sort of we look forward, or it's just as soon as we kind of are done with this more comprehensive review that gives you information to be able to start forming the next steps in decision-making process?
I think it's just a natural process of when it moves along, it would just work together to schedule meetings and find out when the select board meetings are to see if we're at what point we present to them.
Great, okay. Wonderful.
That's my thought.
And I think if it felt like you needed a little more time for some of your steps along the way, that would be okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
We don't really have
We're
a
not
deadline.
locked in.
All right,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
I think by the end of the summer would be great.
Yep,
just,
yep, exactly.
Work that. Yeah.
Thinking about that. Good.
Do you want questions along the way, or do you want to wait?
This is an
Yes,
open
please.
dialogue. Yeah. So if there's,
So I did want to share with the analysis of current facilities, we did quite a lot of work on stakeholders, not necessarily all the contacts and things like that, but we do have a list.
Google spreadsheet.
Yeah. So that,
share.
yeah, that will probably get you started and we can work on that.
So is that, and that, Leslie, is that sort of current, or that stakeholders in terms of people that use or are available for resources or have program?
It's been a while since we looked at it. Who remembers the headings? We did headings and
I
then
think
we
they should put together a group of stakeholders, for instance, different groups within the community that you might want to talk to
Okay.
and develop the
Mhm.
contact and emails and that type of portion. As far as facilities, I think I can provide you with most of that and access to like schools and the library, take you out to the Eddie's Pond and a few other places in town, so you have a sense of what we have currently, I'd be happy to do that portion, and if anybody else wants to meet with us.
I have the headings here, so there's maybe 10 of them. The older community, businesses, athletic focus, those with no children with a social focus, disabilities, businesses, that might want to rent some space, churches, young children, arts, teens, and childcare. So I can say those again if I'm to. Yes,
I
okay.
think I agree. Second choice.
Okay.
So we have the older generation, we have businesses, athletic, social, interests, those without children, I think it was, disabilities. And then there was the businesses again, but it was slightly different, those potentially renting, I think. was down
Yes,
next.
yep, exactly.
Churches, young teens, and childcare.
We also had disabilities.
Yeah, you got that arts and culture. I'm reading that I
Oh,
didn't say
okay,
that.
great.
And teens, you said.
And then there was just an other category that didn't fall in.
And yes, and I had that
Council one
churches
extra.
and other, yeah,
Yeah, okay,
yeah.
sure.
So it's it's like that many.
That's great. Good,
But
good.
nicely on a Google Doc, so
Excellent.
it probably is more
And we
information.
did start putting into the database phone numbers and addresses
Perfect.
for those stakeholders.
Was this a document that was available, when you sent out the RFP, we went online and there was background information that we looked at?
This was not, this has been
No.
kind of a
This is
working
internal.
document with the committee.
Okay, thank you.
I think everything that you would have found online had to do with the survey that we did 2.5 years ago.
Has it been that?
Yeah.
Pre-COVID, yeah.
And the
The summer
presentation
before
that
COVID.
happened. We had an intern from Bowdoin College for a summer who did a nice job of putting,
A lot of the
Yeah.
survey results together.
yeah,
and,
and we
We
created
were not
those.
December 21. Not quite.
Wow.
Okay.
And we created, a document that people could go into and sign in and do Google Doc and fill out the questionnaire and give the answers they wanted, and then he was able to analyze that,
Oh, that's great.
put it together.
Super.
So-
And we did see some of that online. That was
Yeah, that's what
really, really
I think that's what you had. access to.
I do have one other question. With the public-private partnerships, how do you reach out to people, not telling them that we're having a community center? We're just doing exploration around this. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sure you do it
And
naturally, but.
So in the past, what we've done is to say, we're representing a client that has an interest in understanding what potential opportunities might be available to partner and sort of engage them at that level and say, what does this appeal to you? Have you engaged or thought about this type of model and sort of take it from there.
Okay.
Great, so, this is wonderful information. And so then kind of the next step, is really crafting the vision. And so, understanding, now we have, 10 categories, so we have a much more complex Venn diagram than we have them printed here, but understanding, is there a singular vision in which all these 10 stakeholder categories might fall under, or are you looking for some sort of alignment between all of them, in which where the vision might emerge? Is there a vision statement? Yes.
I don't know website.
Yeah.
It's there,
Yeah.
okay.
I think that this is, that's August, let me see. I have it from August, but I'm not sure if that's, that most recent. Do you think it is, Anne?
It should be in the last minutes.
Yeah, I don't have those good that.
I
Just-
I have December of 20.
Yeah.
The mission.
Yes, just if you would read it.
The mission of the Community Center Committee is to understand the desires and needs of the Topsham community to identify accessible, affordable, sustainable recreational solutions that will serve the multi-generational community and social connections among Topsham citizens.
Wonderful. Good.
Thank you.
Excellent.
And then the next page that has the maps on it, we've talked about this a little bit already. And one of the questions we had about identifying the existing programs and locations is, we're gonna get a sense of what's in Topsom for resources, but I'm curious kind of how far afield you're interested in looking. Are you looking to Freeport, are you looking to Bath, or, where is the zone that that you believe would encompass the resources that you might consider for supporting a community center?
How far do you drive?
I mean, I drove to Portland for like some playgrounds and stuff like that. Pools. You drive to Portland for swim lessons, you have to go to Bath with Freeport. I'm trying to think.
Pam, do you have a sense of that?
I think, one thing to be aware of is Brunswick has just recently gotten a big grant and they're doing some extensive, went through this 2 years ago, I want to say, and are doing some major improvements over there. Historically, Topsom has always tried to provide for their citizens, and I think that would be a subject we'd have to broach and kind of look at and how open door type of, because I think when we talk about being frugal, that is a main part of our leadership, is being sure that we're being fiscally responsible at what we provide and what we deliver and still serve the need of the people that are here.
Right. Yeah, and I think,
I was just thinking there are certain activities that are convenience oriented where the things that people, if they have to travel very far, might not participate in, but other things that people are willing to drive farther to enjoy.
Pam, is the grant, Parks and Rec that's received the grant, or is it?
I think, is it I think it's through.
I'm not sure if it's a grant or if they try to get their congressional representatives to pay. Put something in some federal legislation, an earmark or something.
Yeah.
And I believe part of it got approved.
Okay. Is there much outreach and sort of collaboration amongst the two communities in?
We know
programs?
each other well and
Okay.
we work with each other. We
Right.
communicate constantly. I think that everything that Brunswick runs has a considerable markup to the Topsom resident for the services.
Mhm.
So that sometimes, I think, you guys can probably vouch for that with your kids, that if you don't live there, there's a higher cost.
Right.
And sometimes that's preventative. Just like, there is a very involved, Stacy, People Plus, it was
That's what I was just
5
talking
plus,
about.
now it is a teen center as well. And I think that's one of the things we've heard, and we can talk it later on, but we've heard from the school system in regards to a teen support, something for them to belong to.
And could you explain maybe how, so our school district is four towns. So we have Topsom, Harpswell, Bowdoin, and Bowdenham. And I'm not sure exactly how their relationship with our Parks and
We're
Rec.
very connected.
Very
The four towns are very communicative. We're a full-time department with 1.5 staff, and 2 people that are assigned to Parks and Rec as far as facility maintenance. Harpswell has a person of 1.5 people in Harpswell now, that are recreation. Bowdenham has a 30-hour person who provides recreation and senior services, and Bowdoin has a monthly stipend that they pay an individual. We do communicate, we run athletic programs and leagues together, in the sporting venue. We also host the soccer league here within Topsom, but that's stuff that I don't need to take time now. I can
Yeah.
explain
Yeah.
further with you guys in another.
Sure. Good.
And with regard to the frugality, one of the things that I think is a good investment is planning. And so we can take all this information, and if you have huge aspirations and things that might seem like they might be really viable in the future, we can certainly plan for them. you don't have to build them next year or in 10 years, but if you don't plan for them and then you find you need them in 15 years and it doesn't fit on the site or it doesn't
Yeah.
work with what you have, it's a lost opportunity. And so we'll work to try to understand the big picture, meet the budget and the expectations, but also have some systems in place to allow you to evolve and adapt and build what you need to build over time. So, you know, is this first phase gonna have a pool? Probably not. However, that might become something that needs to happen and if it
And that was the
can't,
big result that we heard from our survey.
yeah, exactly. And yeah, if it can't because the planning effort didn't do the right job, you know, that's so we'll make sure that all those considerations are in place. Thank you for all that. And then so evaluating the community needs, part of our connection with the committee is relying on you to advise us the best mode of communication to the community. What types of surveys or outreach are going to be the most effective to get feedback. The more buy-in we have, the more feedback we have, the better chance the project has to get some traction and actually move forward. So are there social media groups and other things in place in town that have a lot of have a large community and an active community that tend to see
I don't really know. I don't know.
We as a committee have talked about just starting like a Facebook page for this whole process, but we were waiting until after we hired your team.
Sure.
Before we actually started putting one together, so we were all on the same page. So that might be something, I don't know if you get involved in that sort of thing, but to just sort of get us online
And
without,
Facebook was
without promising
used.
anything, just
Yeah.
an exploratory.
Sure.
thing.
Facebook was what we used when we created the community center survey, as well as a postcard that went out to participants and programs and everything else. We received about 1,000 responses, which in a community that's about 8,900, that's not bad. That was kind of made the selectmen happy. It moved forward after that.
Yeah.
But I think we have a department, Parks and Recreation page. We have the Town of Topsham Facebook page. And way before we ever knew what Facebook was going to be, I had, as the director of Facebook page, a professional one, and then I have my personal one.
Yeah.
Which I have a pretty good nucleus of about 1,200 people who just relate. That's where we post if anything's canceled, and the department page. That's where we posted things are canceled. That's where we posted we were doing the survey. That's where we communicate and reach out. And there's about 1,200 people.
The other 2 things or 3 things that might help us is, when we did the survey with the voting students, we had volunteers that spent the day out at the June polls for the election referendum. To kind of hand out things, remind people. We also have a transfer station, which gets a nice cross section of the community, mostly on Saturdays. But that might be a place that we could either put posters, have volunteers or something to help push things.
And our transfer station offers a lot of, we have fishing rallies out there, we have Pump Park out there, we have mountain biking trails, so there's a real connection with people when they go through there, they know that there's a lot out there.
Excellent.
And we did have, I just happen to have the postcard that we used, which is just like, it was a nice style. We all agreed that this was kind of catchy color. It might be nice to keep with that. We've also talked about a letterhead. What that might.
Branding
look
the
like.
effort so that everyone can
Right.
understand and associate it
Yeah.
with, good.
Right, because we also discussed eventually having some sort of logo developed. But again, until we got more concrete into the process, something that would be very easily identifiable and we could use on the surveys and social media.
And that's been about not quite 2 years since that was done, right? The survey,
Summer 21?
Summer
21,
Yeah.
all right. since we want to make sure that we don't hit people up for the same information again. So we'll have to work with you to kind of craft how we do that, but it doesn't feel like, wait a minute, I've already been through this and done this, so. But
And we have the database with emails and contacts and all that stuff.
wonderful.
That was sold a bit differently though.
Was it?
It was sold more as a, how would you design a new town
Huh.
type idea, if I'm correct. I mean, I remember when they had the whole, down at the old firehouse, right? Is that the same?
Oh, no, that was the comprehensive plan.
That's
Oh, that's-
another.
And that was why this all came into fruition, because when we did our comprehensive plan update, that was what came through, that there was more community access and activity.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
That's what I
the
was
comp plan was available during the bidding process for this project,
Yeah.
that and the survey, so.
The other useful information in the survey might be, there was a section asking people if they're aware of possible partners or what they may want to do. So we could give you that spreadsheet for all the responses.
Yeah, the actual thing that they wrote in, so that would be great.
But I think they had 2,500 responses for that first one that we had down at the fire station.
Yeah,
Oh, for the
that was,
comp plan, yeah.
that was for the
Yeah.
comp plan.
Yeah, that's also great
Yeah.
involvement. And what year was that? Was that,
That was at least 3 years before. It was probably 2018, 17.
all right, so that's not that long, but that project was undertaken, yeah.
Maybe
We
16.
have a.
Anne's usually right. She's saying
Community Center survey dated April 2016. Was that when you originally started this?
Could have been. And that wasn't that.
I think
long.
COVID changes all of our.
COVID was 19.
2020.
Awful that you have to relate
Yeah,
to.
exactly. Everything was pre, March 2020 and post March
I think
2020.
it was 17.
All right.
I'm just curious, this is Wyndham's from 2021. What did they use at the means for their surveys?
Yeah, we did online or a Survey Monkey was the
Okay.
software that we used, but we sent it out to the community. We had a list of some folks, and then we also solicited sort of an advertisement in the local community paper that please log in to this and post it on the town website, and also as part of a community forum. So please log in and take our survey. And so that's where we tried to cast the net as wide as we possibly could. It was not as successful as yours. I mean, that's impressive for the people that you got to respond. And so, but it's in some ways it's a challenge nowadays because everyone's being bombarded digitally with messages from every angle. So how do you really capture? I like the idea of the transfer station. So it's
And it looks like there was a QR code
Yeah.
on that,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
having a big QR code right at the transfer station.
Yeah.
People as they're
Yeah.
getting out and checking their garbage, yeah. And so, and then we just, the next page just shows a matrix of, what's in the town. So, what we want to take the point of the slide is, we want to take the information we're getting and put it back out there in an understandable format, in a clear format, and one that shows, magnitude as well as, just basic content and frequency of use, and so that.
we'll work with Pam. I think you probably can help us with a lot of those activities, but we'll work to gather as much of that as we can, just so we understand what times of years the programs are taking place, where are they taking
I
place.
did it already.
Did you really? Right. Great. Seriously, you've done your homework.
She's on the ball.
Indeed, that's wonderful. So we can start diagramming that. That's great. Yeah.
Excellent. And then the next one that has the green bars on it, that's really what we were talking about understanding the big overall list, the full list, and then following what the important items are. Thank God for cats, right?
Yeah.
So that's really, and again, just representing this graphically, so it's not just a bunch of words. And then we're not getting into diagrams and layouts, but the next element is to, start to show some of the programs, kind of by size comparison, so we could start to see, what elements, even, the most popular elements, if it's, basketball courts or a pool, those are much bigger a track, much bigger elements than meeting rooms and smaller community functions or a kitchen, and we can kind of start to understand the size relationship of some of those pieces that are most important. And then we just have a couple pages that are examples of community engagement, feedback, and just to be able, we want to be able to display back to the public what we've learned and the extent in which things were supported or disregarded.
Yeah, and again, that the example that the most recent one we had done with Wyndham was a two-step process. One, it was understanding what the needs were, but then it translated those into what a building might be. We're not doing the building side, as we understand. So we're gonna understand what the needs are for program spaces, and then to the extent that you have questions about what a facility might mean in terms of the scale and cost and size and things like that, we can certainly provide you that level of information. But our understanding is that that's a future phase from this initial work that we're doing with you folks. So and the other thing that we also we'll put out there is if there's interest in traveling to other communities to understand what they have for facilities, we'll gladly help facilitate that too. So some of the things that they can provide insights about trying to either fundraise, build, and then also operate facilities. And so that's also really sometimes very, very helpful.
I'm gonna intrigue me was the Naples one.
Yeah.
Looked like that was one that was.
Well, that's an ongoing conversation with the community. And I don't know what you want.
Yeah, so that was the interesting thing about that project was it was a combined community center and town office. And so a lot of the meeting spaces and common spaces were shareable. So the idea was that it was one building with shared spaces, more utilization, more efficiency, less total investment to the town. But it was not supported at the polls. And then about a month after the election, the school gym, the space that they were using as their community center, was condemned because of structural concerns for the group, which was what sparked the entire process. And so they're scrambling now to get just a community center up and running and are looking for, you mentioned frugal there, it's really how can we get a space now and as quickly as possible and as inexpensively as possible. So
There's nothing to visit there yet.
Correct.
nothing to- no, you're not going to get inside the
Exactly.
space.
We can share.
We can show pictures.
Yeah, exactly. So we had done a study and they're using that as a basis to go out and get design and construction services right now for that. And so it is it's gonna be interesting because that is happening right now as we're sort of getting underway with this. So it'll be interesting to see how that evolves and you guys can kind of get insights.
And from what I understand from Linda, is Wyndham actually acquired a school.
Right.
They got a new middle school funded, and so they're acquiring a school. So now they're taking what you gave them and incorporating it. So all the beautiful design that you guys did, which I was like, ooh.
I think Linda was too. She's like, oh.
Yeah. But now they're taking that and looking at the school and how much is it gonna cost to renovate and make that work.
And they're doing it also with incremental funding, so that as they can make investment into the school over time, they will. So they're gonna kind of keep the pieces of it that really make sense to support a community center. And then they'll look at areas that they don't potentially take those down as part of that project. But yeah.
And I hate to report that we don't have any schools that they probably use.
Or be condemned. I don't know if you have any buildings that you can get as well.
So that where's it coming
Right.
It's okay. I'm gonna try to articulate what I'm thinking of right now. So I'm jumping a little bit to how to gauge success and thinking about what you've talked about so far. So when we did our survey, I felt like we had such a good representation, and that being said, it was not found to be statistically significant, right? So it wasn't, we weren't sure if it was a true representation of the community. So as far as gauging success, that's really important to me, because I think I want this all to be for the good of the community, right? So Topsham is truly representative will be really important. And I think we can all help to make that happen. So with that too, I guess my part B is the evaluating community needs will all come from that. And then now I'm gonna lose my train of thought. So I think that the next step of what is recommended is really important. You know, like, what do we really need to be a more thriving community? So. those are my-
No, that's good, and it's gonna be interesting to see, again, how we build that strong enough, of the numbers really, and input to something that is statistically representative, because I think everyone's gonna be pointing to that as whether or not this is valid, or just the
Right.
interest of this group to forward along a, their vision.
Right, if you resend to all those that already sent to us. and they're-
Exactly.
you'll Probably get similar results, so.
Exactly,
right.
so, no, that's a
Okay.
good point. We'll work to craft, that outreach process.
Yeah,
to make
but
sure
each
that-
generation is represented, each.
Exactly,
set of the
demographically, how we
community, yes.
are really reaching out.
I think the other thing that we tried to do that you might be better at is we tried to put some type of a sense of how much are you willing to pay for it, you know, in some of the survey questions, but I don't think we did a good enough job at that. So you may have better ways of reaching that, or, you know, as you try to figure out the priorities or the staging and stuff like that.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, then that's a question that needs to be well thought through. To be able to ask it right and to be able to get the right answer without, that's. We'll
Reply
work
is
on
what
that.
are you selling?
Yeah. Great.
Why wasn't it statistically considered a statistical representation?
I may not be the one to answer.
Well, I think that it was not written. We were laymen writing it. We didn't have, I mean, we tried to word it correctly, but I think if you were really a statistician, you might have formulated it in a different way.
I think the big reason was the sampling too, but like, we didn't have a metric, you know, call 1,000 people out of 8,900, and these are the responses we got. We still let people self-select as they responded.
So tying this back to the comment that the select board wants to support what the community wants. And I'm assuming that, you know, again, to answer that question, what does the community want in order to get support from the select board? That's really kind of the, or is that even? There are probably layers of politics above that too.
You've
but-
got it. And I
So-
think the other side is that we're looking at a fiscal year. Mark, you can probably spill the numbers better than I, where the school district is coming in at a budget where the town is cutting and the town is being frugal, and we're trying for no increases and spending our, you know, taking care of things. And what do we're at?
Yeah, because we paid off some debt early last year, just between the town and the county, we would have been less than 1% for our tax increase on people's bills. But the school has now shared with us what they're expecting, and may get cut a little bit, is Topsham's share of the school district budget would go up about 15%, which would mean an 8 to 9% increase in people's taxes. So people are looking at around from somewhere between 8 and 10, which is a lot more people are used to, but really want.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's why we're very sensitive to cost, that portion, that type of it.
Super, yeah, and obviously timing of everything, and when it you go forward with something is gonna be important too, thinking about people's
But I
appetite.
think it's worthy to add that we have a wonderful relationship. I mean, my department has a wonderful relationship with the school district. And so as hard as it is to look at the tax dollar, we don't pay for facilities. We have keys to every facility. We don't have to have janitorial coverage. We have a contract that we accept that responsibility and work with it and always have an employee of the town there. But I think that has opened our doors and that's why we have the programs that we do have. But that is the difficult part. And we've been very much a part of their fundraising for the new high school with the turf field and that part of it. So we've tried to stay very involved. And they know who we are and what we do. And we work with the high school teams in the summertime to help them run camps, and that money goes back to the school.
Yeah.
To the teams.
Another group we have, might be another one we're talking about partnerships, is the Topsham Fair.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
They've let us
Yeah.
use stuff for civic events there in the past,
without any issue, yeah.
and they have a bunch of space, parking lots.
We use them for the Halloween trick or treat-a-thon and things like that, so.
Excellent.
Is there any special relationship between Highland Green and the community?
It's very interesting because they have very much wanted a separate identity. I mean, even their golf course, part of the problem is that not everybody who lives there golfs or wants to be involved, and a lot of them are very independent people who, on the Highland Green side, can financially support and get themselves anywhere they want to go. I think on the Highland side, they, you know, they provide transportation to places and such as that, do trips. There are a lot of the folks that live in the Highlands or the Highland Green that do belong to People Plus in Brunswick.
I think Roger might be able to address this too, but I think the developer had promised to build them a community center, which recently, in the past couple of years, the push got put on by the homeowners association to make that happen. So they get some type of a, Roger, maybe jump in, but some type of a building, maybe seats.
They do have a community, they do have a pool and it has a building associated with that, and then they have a clubhouse for the golf course.
Right.
And then
But
there's the
I
whole
think that-
trail.
Roger, is the feeling of the committee that, or the neighborhood up there, that they've outgrown that community center they already have?
We don't live at Highland Green.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
It's okay. We
Yeah.
live near Thompson Fair Mall.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I think that the actual community center that they have, the feeling is they've outgrown it. The pool is a therapeutic pool, it's not a swimming pool.
Yeah.
I think that they utilize some time at Bowdoin College for swimming. And they do, Highland Green does not do a lot of, they have committees and meetings in their building, but they now are separately owned. And Highlands does their own programming, so to speak. They've gone through a transition and there's a different group at Highland that we don't, I don't deal with as often as I used to. The woman that used to be there would call and we would partner and do different things. We don't have that relationship anymore. And I think those are, you know, just changes. We used to have a committee that was called the Merry Meters, or a group that was called the Merry Meters that was a seniors group. That the town supported their budget or supported some of their programming. This was about 15 years ago. And at one point in time, I think in 2008, when we were going through a financial, everybody was cutting back and cramping, they were cut out of the budget. And so we partnered with them to do trips and to offset costs and just, you know, we put $1,000 into a bus or something like that, or a smaller bus to do a trip. But since then, they failed to keep adding membership and they now have dissolved.
That was largely, I'll call it seniors or older.
They had existed for, before I came to town, and a long time.
Great. It's a lot of info, really good stuff. And I'm just gonna jump back to the some of these graphics to tie back to the fact that some of our analysis will be return on investment and the types of spaces that will be more or less expensive to build and the types of investments that will typically yield more use or less use. And so we will include some of those analyses in the assessment to offer a gauge of what types of services and ideas might be more or less palatable, because you could have 90% of the town behind a certain program, and then you realize how expensive it is to build and how infrequent it will actually be used. And then you survey everybody again, and you'll probably get a much different reaction and answer in terms of what do you actually want to move forward with.
And I think some of that, Mark, maybe sort of to your point in terms of thinking about how you put a question forward about what people are willing to pay for as well. So.
Something, and forgive me, I'm sorry, I don't want to monopolize, but some of the concerns I have that I've seen in the trend in the area. I'm familiar with what Wiscasset has gone through. They have a beautiful community center, but the town is no longer, because of the loss of Maine Yankee. Their director, I just saw last week, and he and the pool director coordinator are the only full-time staff. Their their custodian retired, and the town's not allowing him to hire a custodian until July 1 because of his vacation, sick, everything else, that pay packet. So, I mean, and I'm familiar that he's the 5th director in Wiscasset since they built that community center. So those are some of the realities that I worry that we build into this, and we, in the pro forma of how much it's gonna cost, that we really factor in what it's gonna cost to maintain, build, and operationally run.
Well, I just wrote them my check today for my membership, so
I know.
doing my part. Wisconsin, because they
Lori's
have
at the pool,
Yeah.
yeah. We have a resident who's the pool director.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who's our neighbor too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quite a neighborhood.
It's a great.
And it's, tied to this cost benefit analysis is another one of our partners, which is Craig Seymour. He's on our team. We didn't bring him in tonight because the modified scope didn't seem like the financial analysis was really such a core part, but he is on our team. We're talking with him, and when we need to really go through the numbers and analyze the ROIs and everything like that for these types of spaces, he will be providing a lot of that analysis for us. So we'll have some really good data to convey there.
So he's like your finance guy.
Yes.
Yeah,
He's
does market analysis.
Numbers.
Numbers, yeah.
The numbers.
All that fun stuff.
he's not an architect. He's a numbers guy.
Like you guys don't do numbers.
Different numbers. We did different numbers. So that's really the core of what we kind of wanted to get through. And then, of course, we just, we'll package everything up into the final report, which some of these slides convey the intention of how we will display some of the information. And we talked about the final presentation. Leslie, you offered some ideas on how you would gauge success. Would any other folks like to offer thoughts on how success might be gauged at the end of this process?
So, yeah, what we'd like to do is before we can go through this entire process, once we're done, let's say that we're in the fall, we're looking back, and we've given you a deliverable. We want to know how are you going to measure the success of this process with Harriman? And so to make sure that we've covered the ground that you're expecting us to cover and answering the questions that you want answered. So that's really our question to you. What is that going to look like? What's success going to look like for this phase of the study? And some of it's been discussed in terms of we really want to know a statistically appropriate sampling to know what the community really wants. That was one that we heard, but other considerations.
I'm looking for something that is cost effectively covering not necessarily all 10 of our
Stakeholder group.
yeah, the stakeholders, but a good majority of it, so that pie can kind of the center of it can really cover a good portion of them. But I also am interested in something that has a nice ability, for high recovery costs and ability. Doesn't always, originally when I first thought about it, it wasn't something necessarily run by the town, it was more something run separately. So I'd like that to be a consideration as well, personally.
And I think that's what we've heard from the select.
Does that mean private?
Yes.
Is that,
Or
is
part-
that?
I think of
Yeah,
partnership.
partnership. Partnership, yeah.
I think of the Y in Bath and the Bath Recreation Department and how they both have a role in the community and they interchange with each other very strongly.
Ellsworth Y does that a lot.
There was discussion among the board as well that we don't want to hurt any businesses in the area. So the gyms, you know, we don't want to compete with them. We want to make it work for the community without hurting you.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because you say that, and I think of when we were working on the design of the high school and putting the workout room together and all the weights and everything, there was a lot of discussion originally that would be open, that there would be community memberships and community gyms oppose that to such a point that just got taken off the table.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I would like to see at the end of this process, the data, and does it give us confidence to say this is really a go or no go?
I was just gonna add a detail that it might be interesting to look at the numbers of youth in the schools. And we seem to have a slight trend that's decreased, the numbers are decreasing in our district. And I don't know what's foreseeable in the next, 10 years, but there has been a decrease over the years.
But an increase in seating.
Well, that's what I'm
Increase in seniors,
saying.
absolutely.
Yeah.
We used to be a bell curve
Uh-huh.
and we no longer are.
It's becoming more top heavy. I mean, we're, as a state, we're shifting towards the older populations, but and we are seeing the demographics.
I was happy to be part of the older population.
It beats the alternative. So we are seeing, just about in every community, the school age populations are decreasing as well.
Interesting.
Because of the Highlands and things, we definitely have become a magnet for seniors. We're probably like an hourglass rather than a bell curve now.
With respect to the issue of the new gym and competing in the private sector, do you have evening basketball leagues, men's leagues, children's league that rent space or use space in the schools?
We run leagues,
You run the
we
leagues.
run the programs. There's not a lot of availability for anyone else to get in the schools until March.
I wasn't in an
He's a coach.
And this year was worse than any other year.
But there's not a private sector entity that competes with, so to
No.
speak. Okay.
No.
Can I kind of piggyback on that? Do we, now that the dome has collapsed, where are the rest of,
Rental, people are using 6 Rivers,
Yeah.
where we were
yeah,
when we went through the walk there. There's a facility we have in town, which you should notice, 6 Rivers, and they have a plan where the former Seacoast Dome was up 201. They have a plan, they took over what was Roller World, put turf down, raised the ceiling. We're actually renting time from them this spring for
Okay.
lacrosse. And they have a space of similar to what Portland's roller rink is.
Yeah.
That is now turf and is rented out. And for the month of March, we were able to get 1 hour a week. It's pretty amazing. We're in there at 4 o'clock on Tuesdays, which is only because it's school age kids, they can get there at that time, but there was not a lot of time. It really got. Road College is in there, Seacoast United is in there, Brunswick and Topsham. varsity sports are in there.
Wow, it's really,
Even the Brunswick Rec Department, they shut down the track because it's all basketball this month. You can't use the track on weekends.
That's a private facility?
It is a nonprofit.
Okay.
It was a group that would primarily came out of Mid-Coast Youth Hockey.
Yeah.
And you actually can see a Zamboni right across. the
Is it?
street. Well, they've purchased the building. They have plans to build an outdoor, a covered ice rink.
Okay, yeah.
And then plans to eventually enclose it.
Mhm.
There's a separate gentleman from Brunswick who was renting the dome at the time of its loss. And he's trying to put a financial plan together to put a dome back up and run a baseball program and lease it out for softball and soccer and field hockey.
And the Six Rivers group reached out to this group about a year ago.
Yep.
And some representatives of this group went over for a tour, so they might be a group on the party too.
Right.
Fortunately, there's not a lot of land over there available. But there is some,
Unless the dome doesn't. go
unless the dome goes, well, that's a good parking lot.
And I'm more than happy when the time is appropriate to set a day that I can kind of put you through everything.
Perfect, perfect. It may be one of our imminent next steps, but we just want to make sure also that we hear from folks that want to chime in on this aspect of success and what make sure we're up to. Roger, we might make sure we don't exclude you from the conversation here.
Yeah, fine. I just have a few thoughts on, I'm wondering if we've made an effort to contact organizations to see what they feel the town can use for, as part of the rec center, like have we contacted the schools? Have we contacted the teen center? I know that we're trying to reach out to individuals when we do the surveys, but I'm wondering if we can somehow reach out to these groups that already have activities going. Maybe they give us some good ideas as to what we need. Just a thought I have about that. And maybe we've already done that. Have we?
The list of stakeholders was our start to that,
Yeah.
making sure that everybody is represented.
Okay.
But yes, it is good to think about the groups as well as the individuals.
Well, those who are already involved in doing functions, they may have some good ideas. I know there's some people in the condo association here who go to Brunswick to walk the track. They go to, I think, Brunswick to play pickleball. And so if we could, include associations in this group of people, they might give us some good feedback.
Yeah.
Great. Regarding the schools, Pam, you want to go through like the third rail to avoid that kind of happened up before?
I think probably our third or fourth meeting of the community center committee, we had school board members arrive at our meeting. And vehement about it, having to have a teen center for the district. And I think that something that Topsham is very aware of is that for a long time, we have carried the weight for the district. I think it's changing a little bit. Harpswell does a better job of caring for themselves than, but there is a sentiment of concern with how much do we build and how much do we do for our residents versus people who feel entitled to whatever. And we get that a lot, that people don't understand that our department, even though we're part of the district and because we use school facilities, one of the agreements we have to have with them is that we'll allow everyone who pays taxes participates in the school. So we allow them to join, or we partner with the other towns to join. But there's a lot of people in the outlying 3 towns that don't understand that Topsham has a and Topsom supports a lot, like, we're getting a lot of grief right now because our Easter egg hunt is for Topsom residents. And so they, you know,
Yeah.
and yet our soccer league and some of our other programs are open to the district. So those are just, you know, little things that we have to work.
So was it that the teen center should be, or
For
a
the
teen center
district,
should be
it's
for
next to
the?
the high school,
Yeah.
it should be here for everybody.
Okay, all right.
And I think is that a safe way of putting it, you think?
Maybe the only thing I'd add to elaborate is like, right now, we are providing essentially Bodenham's EMS. 85% of every Bodenham EMS call has to have a Topsom ambulance go. And the powers that be are like, when people gonna pay their own share, you know, Bodenham needs to be supplying their own ambulance.
Interesting.
So they don't wanna build a Topsom facility that's
Right.
being.
Subsidizing, so.
Exactly.
Resource for the
Exactly.
greater, yeah.
They'd rather try to keep the building and the cost lower to just focus on Topsom needs as opposed to the school districts.
Exactly. You're not an MS.
When you're building the performer, there's I mean, Brunswick has almost I wanna say it's almost a 20% increase for non-residents on programming.
Yeah.
Something that's built right in to their formula for any program that they run.
Can you
That pays
speak,
for programs.
can you speak to the amount that the library plays a part in our community here too?
And I think our library is huge. It's an interesting partnership we have with the library. The town owns the building and takes care of the building and the facility, but the library is a quasi municipal.
It is a 501c3.
501(c). The town does subsidize it. I don't know what the figures are this year, Mark.
85% of the budget.
Yeah. But it does have its own board of directors. It is very active. We have a wonderful, you know, as Parks and Rec, we have a good relationship with them. We do lots of things together. We host a fishing rally and then kids can use their library card to take a fishing rod out. You know, we have a lot of mixed different types of things. They have a teen librarian, they have an adult librarian, they have a young children's librarian, as well as their IT and tech. They do a lot to support people, especially seniors. They have a lot of readers groups. They do a lot of art. For instance, right now it's the photography is the month of April where they'll have the photo show, you know, so they do a lot of different types of things.
Is that level of interaction supported in the information you pull together?
No, well, it says where, I can highlight the ones that we do together. But primarily, we just have a very cooperative relationship with them, and don't double program, so to speak.
And it's a center for our.
Right, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it probably doesn't have room to add on.
Yeah,
Like, we could.
In all honesty, we kick ourselves that they built the library and we could have had a community center maybe to the side. It's like quarter of a mile from our rec facility.
all right.
So.
Yeah, I think in some of the previous documents, was the director of the library part of the group, or was that my thing different or involved in it, or?
They call themselves, you know, a community center for all ages.
Yeah,
And I think in some vision, there may be some people in the group that think, let's build a whole new building, putting new library and community center somewhere else.
Yeah.
But that wouldn't really go along with Google Maps. So
absolutely.
that probably isn't with the vision that I think the whole town did behind.
All right.
Building donation.
No, the town, there were donations for wings. Crooker donated money, the Highlands donated money for wings, that type of thing, but it wasn't all. No, specifically. No, the Whittier Trust did some of it, or the what is it? Whitten Trust. And there is some there, but the town put their share in rebuilding.
Good.
And we own it, we manage it, we mow it, we trim it, we plow it.
We painted the whole building.
And that's just accounted for as a line items in the town budget, or?
So the 85, roughly 85% is just dead line in the budget. But then the capital stuff is as we take care of this building, like, oh, the library needs paint, needs a roof, like this year, it's got a piece of a roof being done, and then it's gonna have to be all repainted.
A couple of years ago, they needed a new furnace. So, and that's built into the town's
Yeah, to
budget.
the town, so the maintenance of the facility itself.
Right.
All right.
They do have a very strong friends group, that does a lot. And they're one of the first people I talk to in the morning when it snows, because we're deciding whether they're open or not, and then I can tell my staff whether they, or our staff, whether they go down and plow it or not.
Good.
Just brainstorming, we have a large, this is about how we gauge success, but we also have a large adult ed program.
Oh, great.
And maybe even a chair like inner Mary Kate, but one of the things Mary Kate used to emphasize in the buildings is, I think you run out the arts and culture part, is that we don't want to put too much emphasis only on athletics, because there are other things that could be done in the community center as well too.
Absolutely.
I think, you know, a facility that had a kitchen where we could rent out, I mean, there are countless times that we get called for use of this room, which is the only room really in the building that is open for public access. And people need a kitchen, and we don't have that. So I think there's those type of things. And I think when you have a senior group, those are the type of things I know from how WISCAX functions. That's very important for them.
And to that, I just want to connect a couple of dots, which is frugal, community center, kitchen. When we start talking about kitchens, large community spaces, people immediately think, oh, it should be a shelter. We should make it, there's climate change, there are all these things, it has a kitchen, it has all this. Well, creating a shelter jumps it into its own structural and it becomes a critical facility. It becomes way more expensive.
We're not.
So it will probably come up as a suggestion, but if frugality and
Unless there was a ton of grant
simplicity.
Unless there was a ton of grant money.
Exactly. And I'd be curious to know at the school.
Let's see, I retire in 5 years.
And right now, there's a ton of grant money, but it's not, well, I mean, the Inflation Reduction Act is more about electrification and renewables, not necessarily like the hardening of a facility. ARPA is about indoor air quality, and so it doesn't, I'm not really sure it would,
We're familiar with all of those.
you know,
right?
like. more,
Well, the other thing that happened
yeah.
to us is we had a warming shelter trying to do good a few months ago when we had, I think it was the
Oh, that
cold
deep
temperatures
freeze,
in
right?
December.
Yeah.
But we weren't staffed for it, so we used our public safety training rooms about the size of this room. And then we had people getting drunk in it all.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Then we had beer bottles shoved everywhere, and so we're like, oh, I guess we can't do that anymore.
Well,
So,
and the interesting thing is taxi cabs showing up that dropping people off that were from another town,
Yeah.
because the other town was full.
Shelters are full.
so no, we're not interested in the shelter.
I was just gonna ask Pam a question. The high school, does it have a kitchen for like a home economics class? Because I noticed they use the kitchen, the home ec kitchens in Brunswick to have classes for Mary meeting.
Mhm.
Is that something that we can coordinate?
We do have it, and we know the health director, she's the varsity basketball coach, we know her well, but we've never gone there. And I think it's simply because we don't have enough staff. I mean, that's where the numbers for programs and ideas, that's what I'm hoping for, is if we can't build a facility, we can justify having more staff that can do certain types of things.
Yeah.
But it is a possibility.
Yeah, because I know I took a class and it was in the Brunswick
Brunswick, home ec.
home ec room area. Mhm.
Our kitchen is in the health ed.
Okay.
I've never been in the home ec, is there?
Was there what?
I'm thinking home economics. I don't think there's, is it? Okay.
Good.
Same thing at the middle school.
Yeah.
We'll use kitchen.
Okay.
We
used
it for our potluck dinner. Great.
There's also another opportunity around here with all the hospitals. So if we're considering pools, if we're looking for some money, there are people that you could probably solicit to see if they're interested in
having any of their therapy sessions. Of course, if they pay for the pool. Good trade-off.
There are physical therapy departments that are looking for.
They have to be. There's
Yeah.
hospitals
Yeah.
everywhere. Them in banks, just everywhere.
Great.
Right. Probably figure something out with the bankers.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, any other thoughts on measuring success or, I mean, gone through a lot of really great stuff. And I think we've already hit really the town's perspective. There's pages of notes, which is wonderful. And then.
Well, no, I was gonna sort of look at sort of regularity of this, of our groups coming together, and thinking about, you know, frequency of, yeah, exactly for that, and meeting schedule for that. And then I think Pam will reach out to you to find some dates as the next steps to really go around and get familiar with the multiple facilities and venues and programs that are in the community. But does this night seem to work? Have you guys used this as your meeting night in the past?
Yes, most recently Mondays in the evening
Great.
is what we've
This
done
month's
monthly.
available.
Mhm.
Yeah.
6 o'clock is ideal. Erica runs a daycare program.
Great.
So after school, so getting here for 6.
For 6 works out very well.
Yeah,
All right,
Monday
great.
nights work.
Okay, wonderful. And so, what we find is that if we meet too frequently, it doesn't give us enough time to actually get any work done. We don't want to go too long because then it seems to stretch out the entire duration of the process. And so finding that right sweet spot, 2 to 3 weeks apart seems to be the right, and so I don't know if we want to shoot for 3-week intervals at this point. Typically we find that to be effective. So.
Yeah, and if we can report back on our analysis of the current facilities ahead of jumping into the evaluation of the community needs and really, you know, have we'll arrive with a report back of what we saw, and then some ideas and suggestions on how to engage the community with getting some needs feedback.
Right.
3 weeks puts us to April vacation.
Right, and that's holiday, Patriots Day. So
That Monday won't work, but
24. Is 2 weeks too short a time? I would.
at this point, it is definitely, it may be that as we dig into it a little bit, we can look to see if maybe, we'll shorten it up. I think right now, 2 weeks is probably a little too quick. So the 24th of April looks to be open. Let's take a look here.
Well, because New Hampshire has to be different than
Oh, you're
all of its
thinking-
neighbors. Our April vacation is the week after yours,
Yeah.
which is always infuriating.
Oh, okay.
But I don't believe yeah, I'm here.
What was that?
2017?
That community outreach event that was held at the firehouse was 2017,
Oh.
October.
And there is, you know, there is a community comprehensive plan implementation committee that exists now. Right?
And they actually beat them on, but before this,
Okay, all right,
yeah, it looks like this room's open on the 24th as well as the first.
wonderful.
Yeah, the 24th would be a great.
Yeah.
A great
6 o'clock.
target.
6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Let's establish that maybe as our, that'll be our next one, and then and we'll probably target again 3 weeks out from there. Let's see what that's gonna.
Make it
15.
Yeah.
And the room's open then too.
Great.
That would be
Can't do
perfect.
May 15th.
Okay, let's can't do.
Your daughter's 21st birthday.
Oh, that's a big one. Absolutely.
She might not be with me.
You can have her earlier.
You can, huh?
Have it earlier, before happy hour.
Yeah, it's true.
Wear your
Okay.
hair well test.
Maybe I.
All right,
So we're not doing 15.
we've got a tentative maybe on the 15th, maybe earlier, but we'll or do we want to?
I'm not available on the 22nd.
How about the 16th?
Can we switch to a Tuesday without disrupting everybody?
And with me.
Can we?
Mark, how's the room?
Actually, it would be open by 6, so. That's actually coming.
May.
I have practice on Tuesdays, but May would be fine.
16.
Yeah.
Does that work for?
We're-
Okay,
uh,
thank
I
you.
can't, I can't.
For me,
16.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have about, I have this many things on that day, so I can't, like, but.
Okay, well, I'll know more about
Okay,
birthday
good. All right,
plans
sounds
at the
good.
next meeting.
All 4 children have something in
Oh
the
my
evening
God.
on May 16th, so I'm out.
Wow, you need volunteers to help you.
I know, I'm really trying to bring up the younger population for.
Right?
That's hard.
So just to confirm, we have April 24th at 6 and Tuesday, May 15th at 6. 16th. May 16th. Oh, yeah, thank you. Thank you, Lynn.
And the 16th, we'll be getting, talking about feedback and information we've learned from the community from surveys. So it'll be kind of like a 3-week, because when we were talking about the schedule originally, we talked about it being somewhat compressed and the strategy of getting kind of short cycles of community feedback was an important thing to keep things moving. And so, yeah, so that in May, we should have an idea of what's important for.
We did brainstorm at one point about having an event here on the grounds and, you know, getting a few food trucks and having some music and trying to do something like that as a committee. And so that's, you know, we can.
Possibility of doing that,
Yeah.
just to convene interested parties to come and share
Exactly,
ideas.
yeah.
Way of
Yeah.
tracking them, so.
We do it Saturday morning at the transfer station. But he's there.
That's right, yeah, yeah, good part.
Yeah, not part of it.
Recycled.
Yeah, we've I've been part of comp plans and things like that, that look at all kinds of possibilities of how do you attract
Yeah.
people to really gauge their interest, so.
Yeah.
We could do a pop-up park,
Yeah,
really, is what you,
Yeah.
right out back, and we'd have to coordinate to have the air compressor shut off. So that we could hear everything, but, we had this great vision when we built this, that we were gonna put a screen on that back wall and show movies. But the entire heating system, because of the design of the building.
Yeah.
Is right there. You can't even eat lunch without having to talk over each other.
These compressors that are loud and
I don't know,
exactly.
Mark holds the key, they might have some control.
In the summer, we can always turn it off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for a little while. Great.
And these meetings aren't too late for you all who are traveling?
No, this is not that. We have some, the ones we have to actually go to the county, those have longer travels than
Okay.
this. So some a little longer than others, but yeah, of course.
Yeah, this is easy.
Great.
And now you said did you grow up in Parksville or just have family?
You know, I grew up in Cape Elizabeth, but
Okay.
yeah, but I have family in Hartsville.
And I'm probably dead. I'm in Lewiston, so for me, it's really easy to get home. So.
You in New Hampshire now, both?
Yeah.
Or part of New Hampshire?
Of course.
Oh, okay. I grew up in North Carolina.
Oh, okay.
Further up in 16.
I made it across the river.
I live in Cape and we only charge 10% for people that out of
Out
town.
of town, even with the pool?
To use the pool.
Great. Well, thank you very, very much. This has been extremely helpful. It's exciting to partner with you on this, and these are the kind of fun projects we really look forward to. These are just really roll up our sleeves, get to know the community, and help you folks solve some problems. So thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you in a few weeks here. So, and we'll, we can sort of maybe just compare some times right now, right after the meeting. So with that.
Perfect.
All right,
Awesome.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do we have anything else? Leslie,
I
did
think
you
we'll
want to
just
discuss?
approve minutes from, from previous meetings. Is really all we have to,
Okay.
and then action items, which is really just
This, I think,
so. Then we hold it up.
And then we have the parking lot and the lot membership. committee.
Oh, yes, yes. Okay,
So we have 2 sets of minutes.
yeah, go ahead.
January 23rd, Steve Kessler, you give those. We were from the initial meeting, and then January 30th. Did anybody bring that meeting?
That's just full day.
Probably, yeah, we're gonna, I think, one.
I only looked on them online when they came through.
So we have January 23rd, and then we have the January 30th
Yeah.
special meeting.
And I can make it.
Perfect.
There was
Maybe
no-
we should share those on an email to make sure that we all.
Sorry.
Okay, I looked at them at the
But not
time.
Steve's, I don't have Steve's. I sent him.
Yeah, I remember reading it. Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't
Fairly.
remember. You know,
Oh, that was the meeting with everybody.
Does not work.
Yeah. On my old computer.
What days
You still have it?
Did you send it to us?
I don't,
No, we didn't get it.
a lot has happened since then.
I may have some notes from them. I can look.
No, I have notes, for
Oh, you
sure,
have notes?
handwritten notes.
Okay.
Because I remember I said, oh, because I found out that night that I was taking the notes after the fact, so I said I'd have to go back to the video to rewrite notes.
Fridays typically.
And
are-
Erica, you have tonight's meeting. You knew that, right?
Thought I had the next one.
No, they had this one.
Oh, you had.
Tuesdays are for me, Tuesdays,
Next.
Thursdays.
Yeah.
are my-
I mean, I did write notes, but I was not, I had it in my mind that it
Thanks,
was
Lynn.
next.
Well, and if these guys are taking.
They took
Why don't you send me your notes?
Right,
We have recorded
yeah,
it.
but that's fine.
Yeah.
PJ, there's been.
Just a question. You mentioned taking minutes. Are those minutes that you share with us?
Yeah, we'll share. the-
Yeah.
Okay, and are
Oh,
those
man.
minutes? She's taking minutes today. Okay, we were taking minutes.
That was my night tonight.
So would those be okay to put online?
Sure.
As our
Yeah,
minutes?
typically our
Okay.
clients do.
Okay.
Yeah, I would think
So is that what you're
FOA
gonna
would
take
make
up
it,
next time?
right?
That's it.
Seasonal programming.
Okay, so we'll 30 minutes
These are the
from Anne.
special events.
Right, those were.
Okay.
Perfect, we'll take it.
Yeah.
That, that's
Yeah.
the
You and I
Yeah.
emailed back and forth about.
Would Fridays?
Does anybody?
What days of the week
Any
better
Friday
for
but
you?
this Friday.
Yeah.
Yes.
So all those in favor of approving the January 30th minutes that Anne wrote,
April 7th.
All in favor?
all in favor?
I said
Friday.
whatever.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And all those in favor of Steve figuring out January 23rd minutes?
So he'll turn those in by next time. And then,
I remember finding out after the meeting or during the meeting that I was doing minutes.
I'm in at 8.
And then we
I
need.
told you when I signed up, the one thing I don't do is take minutes.
we said everybody has to.
Night.
No, when I originally signed up, you came out.
And
I
I
did.
will make arrangements to be able to take
Yeah.
it.
They're still being recorded, so.
Perfect.
To, our facility.
Are there any
To solid waste facility, do all that, and if
We need to
in the
write down the
meantime,
next
anything about
meeting is on
places to
April
be in, we have
24th.
to get it set up.
At
Okay,
6
that sounds
P.M.
good.
Yes.
Monday.
Okay,
Wonderful.
That's. under the
Perfect.
calendar.
Thank
Six
you.
Rivers, I'll try to set up for you
That
for
would-
that, because I think that's a good.
I
Good,
know.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Good, good, good. Yeah,
Next
yeah,
Friday.
yeah.
And Erica will be the
Good.
minutes
Yeah.
for the April meeting. Anything else? The parking lot item, number 2. Did somebody contact, the town, Pam?
We tried that years ago.
Pam, did you contact the town about whether there was somebody's name submitted to be a member? I did.
And her name was, I think it was her maiden name. She lives in
Anthony, sign sheet.
Kim. Grew up on Arbor Avenue. She's a mom with 3 kids, and her next door neighbor had just passed away, so she really didn't know what her time commitment was right now. She's definitely interested and wanted to do it. I talked to her personally after the last meeting.
Did she actually apply?
Her mom's told her, yeah, she had.
And has
But
the select board met
the
with her?
select board had not interviewed her because we were full at the time. And so they held on to her application, and Mark's secretary gave me her application, and I called her. Her mom is a quilter. Her dad was.
She's trying to get to my name.
Retiring.
I'm just trying
Just
to,
email Lynn so she can put it in the minutes later.
Does she take minutes?
so,
I mean, Arbor's close enough to Madeline and Old Tavern to get us.
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen.
I consider her.
Thank you.
All
Take care.
private, no.
Yeah.
Okay.
all private for you.
All right.
The homeowner.
So we're waiting on her to meet with the select board.
The developer
She had actually asked
turned
to
over. to the
wait,
homeowners.
but that was
But
a
the town
month
of
ago.
Topsham-
So I can reach back out. to her.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
Wearing her maiden name was Wearing so it's coming to me. Her married name is, but she lives on Crabtree. So I will get it.
Okay. Great. This will take you directly out too.
Take care, guys.
You can,
Rest this way if you need it before you travel
All right,
and
great.
out that.
thank you.
Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you as well.
That's not their jacket, right?
That's why, don't you get that way.
Yeah. So what about, we have talked periodically about gathering
Pride.
information. What's that?
Kimberly Pride. I hold up my date.
How is she spelled her last name?
Pride, Pride.
About, you were gonna talk with Mary Kate about organizing information to Google Drive, the Google Drive?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know even, it's because if we have a potential new member, right, to get them whatever information is needed.
I will call Kim again this week and report back to you, because it has been a month and I'm sure things are probably settled.
And maybe just, Erica, just a report next time about where we stand with the Google Drive. Okay, so we know what we might want to add to it.
Gotcha.
I think, I don't know, Anne, you're a detail person too, as far as like, Steve and Lynn too, but what is it that we are looking for with the Google Drive? Whoever wants to participate.
What we're looking for is to have, in one place, everything accessible, the survey report, the Standish feasibility, the the RFP, all of the Wyndham survey, all of the stuff that we, as new members, you go to this page and you can look up all the history and catch up.
Yeah.
Minutes you can get off the town website, but that would be their way to catch up on any outside documents.
I thought those were in there too. They're not.
Well, they're not organized. That's what the process is, that they're in different places, but let's get them into a folder. So when a new person comes in, you go to this link and anything you want to know about the committee is in there, so you can bring yourself up to speed.
Would that be then linked to the webpage?
Maybe
Probably
not.
I would say no, right.
I would
okay,
say
that's
no,
what I
when
thought.
It's just
We
to
talked about
create
that.
confusion for people who have
But
information they don't need to know.
Jay, what's the name of it? What Jay Collier had us in, and that had all the documents in
Yeah.
one place and he swore by it. What was the name of it?
I don't know, but I could look it up,
Yeah. It was not like Google Drive, it was similar, but you could add people and you would get an email when anything was added to this.
Is it Basecamp?
Yes.
I use
Yes.
Basecamp for my other committees.
Mhm. Is there a fee involved?
I don't know.
Okay,
I'm just a user for my committee, my national committee.
but Jay used Basecamp and it was very functional for us. I mean, we just added documents up there and did it, and the hard part with Google Drive, and I don't know about the rest of you, but if someone hasn't given you permission,
Mhm.
there's a battle of getting into it if you don't have a Gmail account.
Oh, I didn't think about it. You know,
Yeah.
Gmail account.
Okay, so that would be an action item, something, if, I think that's a reasonable thing, right, to find out where we are with it.
And Basecamp, you can turn off and on notifications however you want. So if there's a particular category, if someone makes changes, you can switch a document for another document. If there were mistakes and you want to change it to a revised version because it was an error, you can just change them and substitute them out that way. And then it will say, do you want to notify everybody on the team or notify no one? And so sometimes you want people to know there's a major change and other times you don't, but I'm not sure how that works out when you have multiple accounts, how that would cross-reference with me using it for both. I don't know how that works. Right? They'd be in the same app and cross. I'm not sure. I do use it.
I'm thinking about action items, and are we all set with contracts and everything with Harriman? That's all done. Okay.
So lucky to have you too.
Came to this one.
You do plenty.
I kept nagging them. First, I mean, I got the insurance certificate and the W-9 instantly once they were awarded for the contract.
Yeah, do you want to also just go ahead and add the May 16th meeting since we just have it booked?
Then we had to
can
have
put it on the
review it,
calendar.
be sure.
Absolutely. That's Tuesday.
I think that's everything, right?
That's everything.
Okay, meeting adjourned, 7:40.
And there's still 20 minutes for pause.